Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. I hope your day is going fantastic, and I hope this video finds you well. We're diving right into it. Now it's Rudy Giuliani. Yesterday, James O'Keefe was absolutely exposing Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi, and calling them out for hiding and covering up the Epstein files, the way Epstein died, and other things. The two loudest people who were going against the mainstream narrative of the Epstein death, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who promised that if they ever get into positions of power, will expose what really happened, release the Epstein client list and the flight logs. They now are in positions of power, and they are pushing the mainstream narrative. James O'Keefe was calling them out yesterday. And today it's Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani actually built the prison. He was mayor when the prison, the one that Epstein died in, was built. And he said there is no way, no possible way that he killed himself. And not even that, but even Steve Bannon says he doesn't believe Dan Bongino and James O'Keefe when it comes to the Epstein saga. We're about to get into all of that. But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, really quickly, the sponsor of today's video and the channel overall is Verity Metals. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in protecting your finances, like your IRAs, your 401ks, through physical, constitutional gold and silver, Verity Metals is the company for you. They are patriots, people of faith, huge Trump supporters located out of Glendale, Arizona. They also have self-storage IRA options. That's right. Self-storage IRA options. They can sell you a lot, a little, whatever you want. Even if you just want to call and just get one Silver Eagle, they'll do that for you, ladies and gentlemen. Gold prices are on the up, and last time Trump was president, gold prices went up by over 50%. Now, is it going to happen again? I don't know. Maybe it's not, but history tends to repeat itself. So call or text 480-717-9081. Tell them I sent you. Get free silver. Links are down below in the description. Let's continue. From here, we're jumping onto my Twitter page, and we're going to watch this small piece of Rudy Giuliani earlier today on the Benny Johnson show.
To which you would call circumstantial evidence that it was not a suicide. It's also a fairly low prison. I don't know exactly which cell he was in, but some of the cells there are, I assume he was in one that was fairly tall. But if he was in one of the shorter prisons, the actual act of hanging yourself would be really hard. You'd have to have some help. In general, hanging yourself is not that easy in a small, confined space. So I could come up with maybe 3 or 4 others. I think it argues for, you got to put it all out. Maybe there are things you and I don't know that make it definitive that it was a suicide. I don't know. I don't know what those would be. So how can I just back off my opinion because 2 people I respect tell me that? At the same time, I'd be less than honest if I said those questions weren't answered. No one's explained to me why the cameras weren't working. No one's explained to me why that wasn't alert. There wasn't an alert of some kind in the guard room. Maybe the camera didn't function that way anymore. I don't know. I can't imagine that you wouldn't have a camera.
By the way, less than 24 hours before Epstein unalived himself, he was in suicide watch. And then they moved him from suicide watch to where he unalived himself, where the cameras just stopped working and the guard on duty took a 2-hour nap. But just coincidence, right? Dan Bongino and Kash Patel told us he killed himself.
Where the security guy is, particularly for a key prisoner, how could you have him unguarded for a long period of time? Why did you switch him? There could be answers to all that, including like if they just tell us the cell he was in and the height of it. That would help. Let's say it's 12 feet high, 14 feet high. Well, okay. But let's assume it's only 10 feet high. That's pretty hard. to do that. So that's where I am on it. And the whole situation with him seems like for about 12 years, 15 years, this guy had some kind of special situation going on, right? Even that original case in the Bush administration. That was in the Bush administration, remember, when they basically gave him a deal that let him off for what appeared to be serial pedophilia. That's a pretty serious crime, except in California.
Now, as you hear there, Rudy Giuliani says it's hard to hang yourself, right? Even in normal circumstances. But I want to touch on this. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. If you want us, I trust Dan. I like Dan Bongino. I like Kash Patel. I think they're patriots, and I respect them. And I have nothing but the greatest gratitude and respect and honor to them for what they're doing, arresting fentanyl dealers, drug dealers, killers, murderers, right? They're keeping the streets clean. Plus, as you've all noticed, no one's burning Tesla cars anymore or scratching them. Why? Because they went and got them like that. But when it comes to the Epstein case, here is why so many people are disappointed with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, because in 2021, 22, 23, and 24, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel were the two loudest voices, two loudest voices in the world saying never drop this. People, patriots, don't stop talking about this. They want you to stop talking about this. Question the narrative. Now they are the ones in power to release all the info, and they are telling us stop questioning the narrative. Something happened. They changed. And Bongino and Kash Patel, if you really want everyone to believe you, to stop criticizing you on this issue, do what Rudi Giuliani just said. Release everything. Now, I know the excuse, and I know there are a lot of people who are making excuses for Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, saying, well, they're trying to protect the victims. If you want to protect the victims, it is very easy to redact all the victims' names. Very easy. Redact the victims' names. Don't release the videos. Just release the flight logs. Release the client list. And the dates. That's it. Dates when they did something. The client list and the flight logs. You release that. You redact the victims' names, their dates of birth, their addresses. That's it. That will take you less than 24 hours to do. But if you really want to protect the victims, and if you really care about the victims, why is everybody still walking the streets? If they really care about the victims, why aren't they arresting the sex offenders? Why aren't they arresting the clients of Epstein? In the last 2 months, 2 Epstein victims unalived themselves. I wonder why. So the thing is, well, they're protecting the victims while the victims are turning up dead and their abusers are still walking the streets. Great protection. I mean, whew. If I'm ever in danger, I know who I'm calling. So I don't buy that they're protecting the victims. I think something bigger is going on. If Epstein was an Israeli or CIA asset, blackmail operation asset, then I understand the powers behind wanting to cover everything up and hide everything and protect the list and the client list. Those are some powerful people. People that don't have to obey the law. They are above the law. They are above the UN. They're above the, BRICS nations, above the European nations. These people have unlimited source of wealth, connections, and power. So I understand. But if you want to take down these thugs and gangsters, you got to be like James O'Keefe, who says if you're going out there to tell the truth And if your price for stopping to tell the truth is not your life, then you're for sale. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you know who have followed me, I've lost lots of things since I started speaking truth. I've been demonetized for up to 10 months at a time on all socials, where I had to work during the day, speak truth in the evenings. I've done many things because truth, I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and he died for truth. But then he rose because truth will always win. And I believe when it comes to this, you got to release everything. Stop with the excuses. I don't buy that he unalived himself until we see evidence of that. I don't believe that they are wanting to protect the victims because the victims are turning up dead while their abusers are walking the streets freely. So I'm not buying that narrative either. But I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. What do I know? Leave me a comment. What do you think is happening? I read you guys' comments. I try to read all of them as much as I can. What do you think is really going on? Do you think we're ever going to get to the bottom of it? God bless you. Subscribe. Stay tuned.